There is a state in this country where you can buy 40 acres of ranch land, a farmhouse with a porch facing a mountain range, and enough silence to hear your own heartbeat for less than most people spend on a bathroom renovation. Real deeds, real acreage, real structures built to last a century, still sitting out there on tens and sometimes hundreds of acres, priced at numbers that make people assume there is a typo somewhere in the listing. There is no typo. Arizona is the 7th largest state in the country. The population is concentrated in Phoenix and Tucson. Everything else is, depending on your perspective, either magnificent emptiness or the most honest real estate deal left in America. The mining towns collapsed. The ranching economy shrank. The Route 66 towns died when the interstates came through. And the farmhouses just sat there waiting. There are reasons for the prices. You need to understand every one of them. So subscribe and let's start. Number 20, Chloride, Mojave County. Chloride is the oldest continuously inhabited mining town in Arizona, which sounds impressive until you realize that continuous habitation currently means about 200 people clinging to a hillside in the Surbit Mountains like they are daring the desert to make them leave. The town was founded in 1863 when silver was discovered and miners flooded in from everywhere a man with a pickaxe and unrealistic expectations could come from. At its peak, Chloride had several thousand residents, multiple saloons, a red light district, and enough ambition to become a proper town. The mines produced silver, gold, lead, and zinc. Then they produced less. Then they stopped. Ranch properties in the surrounding corridor list for $20,000 to $55,000, with acreage ranging from 10 to 80 acres. Adobe homes with walls so thick you could park a small car inside them. Covered porches, views that would ruin you for ordinary scenery forever. The nearest hospital is 20 miles south in Kingman. Summer temperatures push 110. But Chloride has personality. The people who stayed did not stay by accident. Number 19, Hillside, Yavapai County. Hillside is the kind of name that sounds like someone looked out the window, shrugged, and said, "That will do." It sits in a canyon along the Kirkland Creek drainage in central Yavapai County, population somewhere around 200 on a generous day, and it has been slowly contracting since the ranching economy that built it stopped being economically viable sometime around the 1970s. Ranch properties here list for $30,000 to $70,000, with acreage that routinely exceeds 40 acres and sometimes stretches past 100. These are working ranch-style properties with barns, corrals, water tanks, and the kind of infrastructure that someone built because they intended to stay forever and then did not. The drive to Prescott, the nearest city with actual services, takes about 45 minutes on State Route 89. That is not terrible. That is, in fact, one of the better commute situations on this entire list, which tells you something about the list. The elevation sits around 4,000 feet, which means summers are survivable and winters occasionally remind you that Arizona is not always warm. Carl would consider this a feature. Gladys would note that the drive to a decent grocery store still takes the better part of an hour. Number 18, Wikieup, Mojave County. If you drive north from Wickenburg on US Route 93, you will pass through a stretch of the Big Sandy River Valley that is so open and so quiet that it feels like the world forgot to put anything there. Eventually, you will reach Wikieup, which is not so much a town as an agreement between a gas station, a post office, and a handful of stubborn residents that this particular spot on the map deserves a name. The Big Sandy River runs nearby, which is the kind of name that overpromises and underdelivers in a drought year, which in Arizona is most years. Ranch properties in the surrounding area list for $25,000 to $60,000, with parcels ranging from 20 acres to well over 100. The land is classic Sonoran desert transitioning into Mojave, with saguaro giving way to creosote and the mountains rising blue in every direction. The Big Sandy Valley has real ranching history. Cattle operations ran through here for over a century, and the ranch infrastructure, the wells, the fencing, the stock tanks, reflects that. What it does not reflect is any recent economic investment because there has not been much. The nearest hospital is in Kingman, roughly 60 miles north. The nearest anything really is wherever you drove from. Carl would say that is the appeal. Carl has never tried to call an ambulance from the Big Sandy Valley. Number 17, Hackberry, Mojave County. Hackberry is a Route 66 town, which means it was born from highway traffic, thrived on highway traffic, and was destroyed by the bypass that rerouted highway traffic somewhere it would never see again. The original Hackberry mine opened in 1874 and the town served as a supply point for the surrounding mining district. When Route 66 came through, it got a second life as a roadside stop. When Interstate 40 replaced it, that second life ended. What remains is the Hackberry General Store, a Route 66 institution covered in vintage signage and old Corvettes that draws nostalgia tourists, and the surrounding desert, which draws almost nobody else. Ranch land in the Hackberry corridor runs $20,000 to $45,000 for parcels of 20 to 60 acres. The structures that exist on these properties are a mixed inventory of early ranch headquarters and mid-century homestead cabins, and their condition ranges from solid to alarming. Mojave County has some of the most extreme temperature ranges in the United States, summer highs above 110 and winter nights that drop below freezing in the higher elevations. If you are buying a ranch out here and the insulation is inadequate, which it often is, you will feel both extremes in the same calendar year. Number 16, Truxton, Mojave County. Another Route 66 survivor, Truxton sits in Truxton Canyon between the Yavapai Mountains and the Aquarius Plateau. And if you are looking for a sentence that contains more geographic drama per word, I cannot help you. The canyon itself is beautiful in the way that remote Arizona canyons tend to be beautiful, which is to say, absolutely and without apology. Ranch and farmhouse properties around Truxton list for $22,000 to $50,000 with acreage that regularly exceeds 50 acres. The Yavapai tribe's reservation begins nearby, and the cultural history of this landscape runs far deeper than the mining and ranching economy that settled on top of it. Water access is the defining variable. Some parcels have functioning wells. Some have wells that have not been tested since the 1980s. Get the well tested. I cannot say this clearly enough. Get the well tested before you buy anything in Mojave County. Number 15, Wendon, Paz County. Paz County was carved out of Yuma County in 1983, making it the youngest county in Arizona, which is fitting because it looks like the part of the state that everyone forgot to develop. Wendon sits in the Harquahala Valley, surrounded by the Harquahala, Eagletail, and Little Harquahala mountain ranges, which is the kind of landscape description that sounds made up but is completely real. Ranch properties here list for $15,000 to $40,000, with farmhouse parcels running 20 to 80 acres. The Harquahala Valley was once irrigated agricultural land, and some of the properties reflect that history, with irrigation infrastructure, flat productive fields, and deep wells that actually have water in them, which in this part of Arizona is not something you take for granted. The nearest city of any size is Wickenburg, about 40 miles east. Phoenix is about 90 miles and feels like a different planet. Summer temperatures in the Harquahala Valley are not a joke. They are not even a warning. They are a geological fact of life that requires air conditioning the way fish require water. Number 14, Salome, Paz County. Salome was named by a man named Charles Pratt, who arrived in 1904 and decided to call his new desert settlement after his wife, whose name was Salome, and who reportedly said she danced for joy when she first saw the site. I have questions about what Salome was comparing it to. The surrounding desert in 1904 was not exactly competing with Paris. The town had a brief mining period, a longer agricultural period thanks to groundwater irrigation, and has been in slow demographic decline since the 1960s. Today, the population sits around 1,500. Ranch and farmhouse properties list for $18,000 to $48,000, with substantial acreage. Some of the agricultural properties here have date palms and citrus trees that have been producing fruit for decades with zero human assistance, which is either impressive or haunting depending on your disposition. The infrastructure situation is limited but functional. There is a small medical clinic, there is a grocery store, there is a Dollar General, which, as I have said before, is the universal indicator that a small American town exists and intends to keep existing regardless of what the economy thinks about that. Number 13, Aguila, Maricopa County. Aguila means eagle in Spanish, and whoever named this place was either feeling poetic or standing on a hill with excellent visibility, because the views from the surrounding desert floor to the distant mountain ranges are exactly what you would expect from a place named after a bird that flies above everything and judges it. Aguila sits in the McMullen Valley in the northwestern corner of Maricopa County, far enough from Phoenix that the county designation feels almost ironic. Ranch properties here list for $25,000 to $65,000, with parcels running 30 to over 100 acres. The McMullen Valley has agricultural history, primarily cotton and alfalfa, and the irrigation infrastructure from those operations still exists on some properties. The nearest services are in Wickenburg, about 50 miles east. The drive is straight and flat and takes you past landscape that is either therapeutic or monotonous depending on whether you are arriving or leaving. The groundwater situation in the McMullen Valley has been studied extensively because agricultural pumping over decades has affected the aquifer. Know what you are buying water-wise before you buy anything land-wise. Number 12. Congress, Yavapai County. Congress has one of the better origin stories on this list. The Congress mine, which opened in 1884, became one of the richest gold mines in Arizona history, producing millions of dollars in gold and making a handful of people very wealthy while making thousands of miners moderately less poor. The town that grew up around it had a railroad spur, a post office, a school, and enough confidence in the future to build permanent structures out of stone and adobe. Then the gold ran out in the 1910 to 1930 period, and Congress began its long, slow exhale. Today, the population is around 2,000, and the surrounding ranch land sells for $20,000 to $55,000, with acreage ranging from 15 to 80 acres. The proximity to Wickenburg, about 30 miles south on US Road 89, gives Congress better access to services than most communities on this list. The historic properties here are genuinely interesting. Adobe structures with territorial-style architecture, thick walls, and covered verandas that were designed for a climate that has not changed even if everything else has. A house built by people who understood desert heat in 1890 is often better suited for desert heat than a house built by someone who assumed the air conditioning would always work. Number 11. Yarnell, Yavapai County. If you know one thing about Yarnell, you know about the fire. In June of 2013, the Yarnell Hill Fire killed 19 members of the Granite Mountain Hotshots, an elite firefighting crew from Prescott, in one of the deadliest wildfire disasters in American history. The town itself was largely destroyed, and the community that rebuilt afterward did so with a grief and a determination that is genuinely difficult to overstate. Properties in Yarnell range from $12,000 to $40,000 for ranch and farmhouse parcels of 10 to 40 acres. The setting is remarkable. Yarnell sits at nearly 4,000 feet on the edge of the Weaver Mountains, with views down into the Sonoran Desert below that make you understand immediately why people kept coming back here despite everything. The rebuilt town is small and still fragile, in the way that communities rebuilding from catastrophe tend to be fragile. The Granite Mountain Hotshots Memorial State Park draws visitors, and the community has worked hard to find its footing again. Buying property here is not just a real estate transaction. It is a statement about whether you believe in a place, and some places deserve to be believed in. Number 10. Mayor, Yavapai County. Mayor sits along the Agua Fria River in central Yavapai County and has been many things over the years. A mining supply point, a small agricultural community, a bedroom community for people who work in Prescott or the Phoenix Metro and have decided that the commute is worth the savings. That last category is increasingly relevant as Phoenix's housing costs have pushed people further and further into the surrounding desert. Ranch and farmhouse properties in Mayor list for $30,000 to $75,000, with acreage running 20 to 60 acres. The Agua Fria River corridor has genuine biological richness, with riparian vegetation and wildlife that stands in complete contrast to the surrounding upland desert. A property with river or creek frontage here is worth the premium because water, actual visible surface water, is a luxury in Arizona that deserves to be priced accordingly. The drive to Prescott runs about 40 minutes north on State Route 69. The drive to the Prescott Valley Commercial Corridor takes about 30. By the standards of this list, that is practically suburban. Number 9. Humboldt, Yavapai County. Humboldt was a smelter town. The Humboldt smelter processed ore from the surrounding mines for decades, and the community that grew up around it had the particular character of a place where the work was dirty and dangerous and people did it anyway because the alternative was worse. The smelter closed, the mines scaled back. The people who stayed either had roots deep enough to hold them or simply had nowhere else to go. Properties here list for $25,000 to $55,000 with parcels of 15 to 50 acres. Some of the older structures have the industrial-era aesthetic of a place that was built for function rather than beauty, which is its own kind of honesty. Prescott Valley is about 20 miles north, which again makes Humboldt practically cosmopolitan by the standards of this list. Gladys would probably approve of Humboldt. I am not going to tell Carl that. He will start sending me listings. Number 8, Bagdad, Yavapai County. Bagdad, Arizona is a copper mining town that is still technically a copper mining town, which puts it in rare company on this list of places where the industry that built them left. The Bagdad mine, operated by Freeport-McMoRan, is one of the few active open-pit copper mines in the state, and it gives Bagdad something that most communities in this part of Arizona desperately lack: a payroll. That said, Bagdad is not exactly booming. The population hovers around 1,500, and the surrounding ranch and farmhouse properties list for $20,000 to $50,000, with acreage ranging from 20 to 100 acres. The drive to Prescott takes about an hour and 15 minutes on State Route 96 and US Route 89, through some of the most genuinely beautiful empty country in central Arizona. The presence of an active mine creates a complicated dynamic for property buyers. On one hand, there are jobs. On the other hand, open-pit copper mining is not quiet, and it is not invisible. And the environmental record of mining operations in Arizona is something any prospective buyer should research before committing to the neighborhood. Number 7, Peeples Valley, Yavapai County. Peeples Valley is named for Abraham Harlow Peeples, a scout and prospector who led the party that discovered the Weaver gold placers in 1863. The discovery made some men wealthy and drew thousands more into the Arizona wilderness on the particular kind of optimism that only the discovery of gold can generate. Peeples himself made enough to retire and spent his later years being the kind of man that small Arizona towns name themselves after. The valley today is a high desert grassland basin at around 4,500 feet, cool enough in summer to be genuinely pleasant and cold enough in winter to mean something. Ranch properties here are among the most appealing on this list because of the combination of elevation, grass, and views. Prices run $40,000 to $90,000 for farmhouse and ranch parcels of 20 to 100 acres. This is horse country, cattle country, the kind of landscape that the word ranch was invented to describe. The nearest services are in Prescott, about an hour south, or Wickenburg, about 45 minutes southeast. The trade-off is real, but the land is genuinely magnificent. Not everyone gets to live somewhere magnificent, and the ones who do tend to have paid for it one way or another. Number 6, Kirkland, Yavapai County. Kirkland sits in the Kirkland Valley along Kirkland Creek, and I realize that is a lot of Kirkland for one sentence, but whoever named this valley had a consistent brand identity, if nothing else. The community grew up as a ranching and small farming settlement in the late 1800s, and it has remained a ranching and small farming settlement ever since, which is either inspiring continuity or economic stagnation, and probably both. Ranch and farmhouse properties list for $35,000 to $80,000 with parcels of 30 to 120 acres. The Kirkland Valley has reliable grassland and some of the better natural water access in Yavapai County, which is not nothing. In a state where water defines everything, a valley with a creek that actually has water in it during most of the year is a genuine asset. The drive to Prescott is about 45 minutes. The community is small, but it has the particular solidarity of a place where everyone knows everyone and means it. If your barn catches fire, your neighbors will know before the smoke reaches the road. Whether that level of community involvement sounds comforting or claustrophobic tells you a great deal about whether you would actually be happy here. Number 5, Skull Valley, Yavapai County. The name Skull Valley sounds like it was invented by a screenwriter working on a Western, but the origin is grimmer than that. Early travelers found human skulls in the valley, likely the remains of conflict between Apache raiders and Yavapai people. And the name stuck with the kind of historical frankness that modern place naming committees would never permit. Today, the valley is quiet in a way that makes the name feel almost ironic. Ranch properties in Skull Valley run $30,000 to $75,000 for parcels of 20 to 80 acres. The valley sits at about 4,000 feet in a natural grassland bowl surrounded by juniper-covered hills, and the morning light across those hills is the kind of thing that makes people who drove through once spend 20 years trying to find their way back. The nearest town with services is Prescott, about 30 miles east on State Route 89. 30 miles on Arizona roads through open country is not the ordeal it sounds like. It is actually quite pleasant, which is something I did not expect to say about a valley named after human skulls. Number 4. Paulden, Yavapai County. Paulden sits on the edge of the Chino Valley in northern Yavapai County, where the Colorado Plateau begins its long descent toward the basin and range country to the south. The landscape here is dramatic, in the specific way that elevation transitions tend to be dramatic, where you can see the geological argument between two different kinds of country playing out across the terrain. Ranch and farmhouse properties run $25,000 to $60,000 for parcels of 20 to 100 acres. Paulden has a small community feel, and the proximity to Prescott, about 35 miles south, makes it more viable for people who need access to services but want to pay desert prices for their real estate. The groundwater situation in the Chino Valley has been a subject of serious concern for years. Agricultural and residential pumping has significantly affected the regional aquifer, and the Verde River, which the Chino Valley aquifer helps sustain, has been impacted as a result. If you are buying a property with a well in Paulden, understanding the local water situation is not optional. The Arizona Department of Water Resources has data. Use it. Number 3. Seligman, Yavapai County. Seligman is the town that kept Route 66 alive. When Arizona was preparing to decertify the last stretch of the old highway in 1978, a barber named Angel Delgadillo organized the historic Route 66 Association of Arizona and fought to preserve it. He won. And Seligman became the symbolic heart of what was left of the Mother Road. Angel's barbershop is still there, still covered in memorabilia, still visited by travelers from every country in the world who come to touch something they were afraid had disappeared. Ranch and farmhouse properties in the Seligman area list for $15,000 to $45,000 with parcels of 20 to 80 acres. The elevation runs around 5,000 feet, which means 4 genuine seasons, and the occasional serious snowfall that nobody told you about when you were looking at those summer listing photos. The nearest hospital is in Kingman, about 60 miles west, or Williams, about 40 miles east. What Seligman has that most places on this list do not is a reason for people to come through. The Route 66 tourism economy is real, and it brings money into town all summer long. Whether that creates a viable community long-term is uncertain, but Seligman has already survived every prediction of its demise so far, which at minimum makes it interesting. Number 2. Ash Fork, Yavapai County. Ash Fork calls itself the flagstone capital of the world, and it is not entirely wrong about that. The area sits on one of the largest deposits of natural flagstone in the United States, and the quarrying industry that developed around that resource has provided Ash Fork with an economic identity that most small Arizona towns never managed to find after their original industry collapsed. Ranch and farmhouse properties in the Ash Fork area list for $18,000 to $50,000 with parcels of 20 to 150 acres. The town sits at 50,000 feet on the Colorado Plateau, which means winters are real and summer temperatures, while warm, never reach the apocalyptic levels of the Sonoran Desert below. Interstate 40 runs through Ash Fork, which provides both a lifeline to the broader economy and the particular ambiance of an interstate truck stop at 2 in the morning. The flagstone industry provides jobs that the mining towns and railroad towns and Route 66 towns on this list never managed to replace. It is not glamorous. Quarrying flagstone in the Arizona sun is not something anyone does because they dreamed of it as a child. But it is work, and it is steady, and in rural Arizona, steady work is worth more than almost anything else. Number 1. Peach Springs, Mojave County. We end where Arizona's geological history is most visible and most humbling. Peach Springs is the capital of the Yavapai tribe's reservation and sits on the edge of the Grand Canyon's Diamond Creek drainage, which is one of the only places in the entire canyon system where you can drive a vehicle to the Colorado River. The Yavapai have operated river rafting tours from this access point, and the tribal tourism economy, while modest, is real. Peach Springs has a population of around 900 people, and the surrounding Mojave County corridor outside the reservation boundary offers ranch properties for $20,000 to $55,000, with acreage ranging from 20 to well over 100 acres. The landscape here is the Colorado Plateau transitioning to basin and range, dramatic canyon country with long views and geological time visible in every cliff face. Route 66 runs through Peach Springs, connecting it to Seligman to the east and Kingman to the west. The nearest full hospital is in Kingman, about 55 miles west. The isolation is significant, but the setting is one of the most spectacular on this entire list. You are, depending on where your property sits, potentially a short drive from one of the natural wonders of the world. Most people pay several $100s a night to stay near the Grand Canyon's south rim. Out here, you might own the land outright for the price of a decent used pickup. I will let that sit there for a moment because it deserves to. Here is what nobody in the listing photos tells you about buying cheap ranch land in Arizona. The water situation is not a detail. It is the entire story. Arizona operates under the prior appropriation doctrine, which means water rights belong to whoever established use first, and the person selling you that beautiful 40-acre ranch may not have the water rights that go with it. There is no unclaimed water in Arizona. There is only water that belongs to someone else and water that belongs to you. And telling the difference requires a lawyer and a conversation with the Arizona Department of Water Resources that will either reassure you or save your life financially. The heat is not a selling feature unless you have truly reckoned with what it means. Summer temperatures regularly exceed 110 degrees. Air conditioning is not a comfort. It is a medical requirement. And when the power goes out in July, which it does, the clock starts immediately. The distances that make these properties affordable also make them genuinely dangerous in emergencies. The nearest hospital for many of these properties is an hour away on a good day. Arizona has monsoon season. It brings violent thunderstorms and flash flooding and the particular terror of watching a wall of water come down a canyon you did not know was a drainage. The cheap ranch in Arizona is real. The deed will have your name on it. Just understand what you are buying, not the listing, the life. Because in rural Arizona, those two things are not the same. Carl has been looking at listings for 3 weeks. He found 40 acres outside Seligman with a farmhouse, a barn, and mountain views for $32,000 and sent me the link at 11:30 on a Tuesday night. Carl, get the well tested. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other.